I wasn't even sure if I was going to post this video because I was so disappointed, and I didn't want to come across as a whiner and be dramatic, but I think it's important to post videos like this so people are aware and they can learn from the mistakes and the experiences that I've been through that haven't been great, and hopefully avoid these mistakes and issues later on. About 4 weeks ago, I went to the local farm store where we order our chicks and then they order through a local hatchery here in Wisconsin to pick up our 8 Buff Orpington chicks and our 8 Delaware chicks, all hens, so 16 chicks all together. When I got to the farm store, everything was great. I picked up the feed, the shavings. We usually purchase everything there. It's a local store. We trust the people there, and everything went really well for about the first 24 hours. I actually made a video that shows you how to set up a brooder to ensure that chicks don't die and make it into adulthood. The chicks were picked up the Thursday before Easter Sunday. And on Thursday into Friday, everything was going really well. They were eating the way they should, drinking the way they should. They were active within their brooder. And then things started to get a little weird Saturday morning into Saturday evening. I noticed that when I would go down into my basement to check on the brooder, every now and then there'd be a chick that was not looking so great. And then after that, I noticed that a few of them were dying. I'm used to raising meat birds and egg layers, so egg layers, generally speaking, are much more hardy. Meat chickens, on the other hand, as you may know if you've raised meat birds, are not the hardiest, and you can expect between 10 and 30% loss after you purchase the chicks. Having that knowledge in my brain, I was a little surprised to see 1, 2, 3, 4 birds that weren't doing so well, then eventually died around Sunday morning. This would be Easter now. So I'm at my parents', we're there celebrating Easter with my family and my extended family. I'm talking to some people that have had chickens before, asking what they think might be happening. I know I've done everything right. The temperature was right. The water was clean. It was changed every day. The feed, all that stuff was as good as I knew it could possibly be. By the time I got up to go to work on Monday morning, we had lost 13 of our 16 chicks that we got just a few days before. I was really mad. And the reason why is because we need chickens here at our homestead for it to operate properly. They are tools that we use for meat, eggs, creating compost, and hopefully in the future, breeding more chickens to be more self-sustainable here on our homestead. And we did not order these chickens through the post office from the hatchery. We ordered them through a farm store that works with a local hatchery, and it's something we always do because we don't want to have to deal with the post office, and it's good to support a local farm store. On Monday, I called the manager from the farm store. I told him exactly what happened. He's a super nice guy. He talked to me about what my brooder looks like, the water, the heat lamp, the feed. We crossed basically every single thing off that we knew that could impact the death of these chicks. After I talked to the manager at the farm store, he says, you know what, when you ordered those Delaware chicks and those Buff Orpington chicks, I happen to have ordered the same kind of breed and keep them here in my farm store for people to purchase just in the farm store. If you've ever been to a farm store, sometimes they have chickens for sale, like Tractor Supply does this. They put them in their water troughs. You can come in and buy a few chicks. It's kind of fun. And he happened to have those exact same breeds in his farm store because he ordered them with the chickens that I got on the exact same day. He said, you know what, I don't know what happened. I'm really sorry. And I know it's not his fault. He has nothing to do with this. He's just managing this store. But he said, you can come in. I've got about 4 or 5 Buff Orpingtons, so not 8 like I had, but I have 12 Delaware chicks, and you can take as many Delawares as you want, and I'll give you all the Buff Orpingtons and a new bag of feed, just in case the feed you did purchase before, this is him talking to me, wasn't good for whatever reason, and that may have been the cause of these chickens dying. So I said, great, thanks, I appreciate it. The only concern I had at that point was now I'm bringing these healthy chicks in that are alive since Thursday, this is Monday, that had no issues at all, bringing them into my brooder where there were issues. And it could have been a disease, it could have been something in the water, which it shouldn't have been. We have really good water here. It could have been the feed. Who really knows? At that point, that was my biggest concern, is now I'm bringing more chickens over to my house, and now those chickens are going to get sick and eventually die, and we're not really solving the problem of what the issue was to begin with. So after work, I drive straight to the farm store. I pick up all the Buff Orpingtons he had. I think he had 5 or 6, I really can't remember. And then I also pick up 8 Delawares. I didn't want to take 12. I thought you can keep 4. It's not your fault. So I took 8. I thought that's plenty, although he was nice enough to offer me 12. I get them home. I remove their feed that they had been using. I throw that away, thinking that could have been the issue. when I went back there to get the chicks he was giving me, I also got a new bag of feed, thinking that that could be the issue. So I bring in the new chicks, which is super great because these chicks are from the same hatchery, born on the same day, delivered to the same farm store. They could even be brothers and sisters. I really don't know because they're the exact same breed. And I was really happy with that because if you know anything about raising chicks, the difference between a 1-day-old chick and a 2-week-old chick, if I had to wait that long to replace my flock, is pretty big. And when you've got 2-week-old chicks compared to little tiny yellow fluffy chicks, they can get picked on. It can create all kinds of issues with the pecking order. And I just didn't really want to go down that road. I didn't want to have to keep them in separate brooders. So I'm happy that we got the exact same age chicks and the same type of chick as well. And I just kept thinking over and over, I was like scratching my head saying, what could it possibly be? I've done this tons of times. Every year it seems like we're getting chicks, and over the years that adds up and all this experience, and we've never had an issue like this. Our chickens have always done really well in the past. We've never had an issue with chickens dying like this, especially egg layers, especially heritage breeds who are known to be hardy to begin with. And then I remember, before I made my first video of this series, video number 1, I remember opening up the bag of feed and taking out this big clump of chick starter feed, which is just grain, and noticing that there was this huge clump stuck together and it was hard as a rock. You couldn't break it if you wanted to. It was literally like picking up a rock of this frozen grain. I'm like, that is weird. But that tells me that that was frozen because water got into the bag. Whenever that was, it probably was sitting outside on pallets and then it drips on the top bag when it rains or whatever. And here in Wisconsin, it freezes at night and thaws during the day, so it had this process of freezing and thawing. When I got there in the morning to pick up the feed and the chicks, originally that Thursday morning before Easter, that's the bag I grabbed, not knowing that there was probably feed that had gone bad, and knowing that there was water in there. You know what happens with water and grain, it eventually turns to mold. So the only thing I can think of, and I'm about 95% certain now because that's the only thing we changed, is that there was mold in the feed, but it didn't look like it, it didn't smell like it. All the other feed was totally fine. I took that clump and I just chucked it outside, or I got rid of it, and I started using the feed that didn't seem to be affected. But I should have known better that water at some point came in contact with that grain, and you need to keep your chicken feed and the grain very, very dry at all times. It's extremely important not to have any mold or any water in any of your feed, because even the feed that the water doesn't touch, it can affect. And who knows how long that feed was sitting outside. Grain can store for a really long time, and it could have been infected before it even got to the farm store. It could have been from the mill. So that's ultimately what ended up happening. And it's weird because now we have, get this, 19 chickens instead of 16, and 3 types of chicken breeds instead of 2. I didn't mention earlier, but on Sunday, after discussing these issues with my family and being concerned that these chickens were dying and kind of feeling like we needed to get something going quickly so that we didn't have to start all over again and reorder from the hatchery and everything. After we were done celebrating Easter at my parents' house, my wife and I, this is something I've never done before, drove to Tractor Supply. I didn't even know they were open on Easter. I don't think I've ever been in a store on Easter, ever. We drove to Tractor Supply, knowing that Tractor Supply often has random breeds of chicks that they sell from time to time. We walked in and there weren't many available. You know, they have ducks and turkeys and all these other things, but we wanted good heritage breed egg-laying chicks and hopefully dual purpose as well. So we walked in there and we noticed that they had 2 types of chickens. Cornish cross, which are meat birds, prolific meat birds. Of course, we don't want that. And so we looked into another water trough and they had 4 partridge rock dual purpose chickens. And we're like, we'll take them. The only downside about purchasing those 4 barred rock chicks is that they came in straight run. So we don't know yet if they're roosters or hens. We're hoping that they're all hens, but they're probably not. It's probably 50-50. And we'll have to update you when we find out one day. If we have roosters, we might butcher them for meat. If they're really nice, we might end up keeping one. We'll just have to see how it goes. So if we go back to how all this started with the feed and 16 original chicks, 13 died, which is over an 80% loss, which is just crazy to me. And now we've got 19 chicks, 3 breeds, not 2, and not 16 anymore. And the ratio is kind of messed up where we have more Delaware chickens, which is fine, than Buff Orpington chickens. And in case you're wondering why we went with Buff Orpington and Delaware, it's because Buff Orpington are really good at reproducing, and they go broody and they take care of their young really well. Instead of using a brooder and instead of using an incubator for their eggs, we want that to happen naturally. And in case most of them go broody at one time, I've heard of this happening. Some of my subscribers have even told me this, that a lot of times the Buff Orpingtons go broody at one time. So if all 6 of them go broody at one time, I still have those other 10 or whatever it is Delaware chickens that can still be laying while the other ones go broody, because broody hens don't lay. They want to sit on eggs. They don't want to produce eggs for us. The next time you see a video for this series, Chicks to Chickens, I'm going to show you my really cool chicken run that I designed. It's going to be completely finished. I still have to do the fencing, the door and everything. This amazing coop that I built that I'm really, really satisfied with. Why I have logs in here, why that ring is in here, why that's in here, this in here, and the proximity to the garden. The garden is really taking off. So we've got a lot of things going on this spring, and I can't wait to show it to you. Next time you see the chickens, they're going to be in the chicken run or in the chicken coop. I'm going to give you a complete tour of this entire thing and how it works. You don't want to miss that one. If you've ever had an experience like this or something that compares to this on your homestead where you're just driving yourself crazy, even if it's just for a day or two, maybe it's for a year or two, where you just can't solve an issue, you can't figure something out, let me know about that down in the comments. I'm sure we can relate to one another. This isn't the first issue we've had on our homestead. It's not for everybody, I can tell you that. Homesteading is something of emotional highs and lows, but it's a great learning experience, and I hope you learned something from my experience. And I hope you look at the other videos from this series, Chicks to Chickens. I have a video out now about what it's like to raise chickens in between the chick and adulthood stage. There's a lot of important information in there, as well as how to ensure that chicks are really healthy from a young age the day you bring them home from the hatchery. Thank you for watching. I really appreciate it. This is Together We Harvest. I'll see you on the next one.